In this lecture, we're going to go over how to do the Unit 1 workbook for the displaying quantitative data for the 1-2-2A displaying quantitative data. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And what we've got right here is all of the data that's based on exercise number of days per week, exercise hours per week, ideal time to exercise. And we're going to make pivot tables for this. And when we make pivot tables for this, we will be able to, what's it called? Once we make pivot tables for this, we'll be able to make histograms as well as a relative frequency as well. So first thing that we're going to do is we are going to make a pivot table for all this data. So I press Control Shift over, Control Shift down, and you notice it doesn't completely, there's a blank one right there, so you've got to do it again. When you do that, it only goes to the blank. And then when you have all this information, you do Insert, Pivot Table. And so I've got, okay, it's whatever I highlighted is the table. Then I go to the existing workbook and I press OK. I click on the location that I want it, and then I press OK. And then you can actually, what we're going to do is we're going to Control C, Control V. Oh, it didn't like me. Hold on, Control C, Control V, Control V. So now I've got that same pivot table in all three of these places, and we're going to edit them. All that I did was say, hey, make a pivot table in here that's based off of this data. Make a table in here that's based off of this data. But we're going to start right here, and we're going to do exercise number of days. And we're going to put that in both of these. Okay. And then right here is exercise hours per day. So we're going to do hours per day, hours per day. And then right here, we're going to do ideal time to exercise in rows and in values. And so we've got a pivot table in all of these. And what this is saying is you've got these that are, it's saying you've got 7 days. How many students exercise 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week? What the problem is it doesn't tell you how many, it tells you the sum of this. So there's 6 students who exercise 1 day a week, 6 students, 2, and the reason why is because it says sum. So we're going to right click and we are going to summarize values by count. Okay, so 6, 6, dot, 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 dot. And then we're going to also do one more exercise number of days a week. Sorry. And once again, gives you sum. So we put it under values on this right-hand side again. And so we have to summarize values by count. And then we need to do show values as percent of grand total. And so we've got the relative frequency right here. And then we've got the actual frequency right here. And there's 98 observations because there's one blank. And if you want to make this go away, you can just click on this, right click and do filter, hide selected item. So I right clicked and I did hide selected item. And so the blank goes away. But now we've got this information right here. Now, if I want to make a histogram, the best way to do that, because I can click on this and do insert histogram, and it's not going to work. The only way that you can make a histogram is by doing it with the raw data, which we can do that. Insert histogram. Sorry, not that was insert histogram. The problem with this histogram is you can't control the bins. You notice how these are all split up kind of wonky? We don't want that. We want 1, 2, 3. We want to control these bins. These are called bins or classes. So class, class, class. These are all classes. Or we could also put right here, classes. Class 1, dot, 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 dot. And so we want there to be 7 classes. And so what we're going to do is if we go like this, insert bar chart, it gives you the classes just like this. And this would be great, except for the fact that it includes both of these. It includes the relative frequency column and it includes the actual frequency column. So because of that, we actually need to take this out, Control C, Control V. So we're going to put it right here. And just this, we're going to do insert, and then we're going to do it didn't like me there. Another way to do this, when you have all these numbers right here, you can put these as text. And when you put it as text, so you change the data type to text. And I double clicked on all of those so that way I would change it to text. And then I'm going to do insert. There we go. So now I've got the classes, and the reason why it puts it down on the bottom now is because it's recognizing these as text. You could have also typed in one or put a space behind them. There's a lot of things that you could have done, but it just needs to recognize as text. And then you click on this, double click, whatever. And then over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see the little bars. You want to change the gap width to 0, and it'll make it so that there's no gap between these at all. Okay. So now you can look at these and see the distribution with this histogram. Okay. Next. So this is correct. And you see, okay, there's about 28 observations, 29 observations for 5, and right here, yep, 29. 6, there's about 24 observations, and yeah, 24. And so you can see, you can look at the number of observations in relation to the line on the left-hand side, okay? Or the value on the left-hand side. Over here, we're actually going to use the 2 to the k rule, okay? So 2 raised to the k is greater than n rule, where k is the number of classes, n is the number of observations, okay? And so in order to do this, what we're going to do is first, let's fix this, okay? Sum, right away, we need to change this, summarize values by count. So we're changing it to count. And you notice right down here, there are a total of 99 observations. So number of observations, let's put this, there we go. Number of observations is 99. And we've got to find the number of classes. So to raise first, second, third, third. Let's do this. Equals 2 raised to the this, and I'm just doing this to show you guys, 2 raised to the second, so on and so forth. I'm just going to drag this down. And we want the first one, 2 raised to the whatever this is over here. The first one that's over 99 is about how many classes we need. So 2 raised to the 7th is the first one over 99. We're going to go right there. I'm going to bring this down here because we're going to use this later. So 2 raised to the 7th. And the next thing that we've got to do is we have to calculate the interval or class width. Okay. And the way that you do that is I equals max minus min divided by the number of classes. Okay. So we've got the max. Let's look at the max and the min. The max is going to be the largest value right here. So the max is 5.5. Okay. The min is 0. And now we need the range, because the range is going to be max minus min equals minus. So the range is 5.5. And then you do equals the range divided by 7. Whoops. Equals the range divided by 7 and gives you, did I do that right? Equals the range divided by 7 Okay, and that gives you 0.75. Now, I don't like 0.75. Or sorry, that gives you 0.78. I don't like 0.78 because it's not round. If I were to do this, for instance, what we're going to do is we're going to group. So you come up here, you click, you right click, and we're going to group these into classes. So I'm going to group 0, okay, and do 0.78, 5, okay. We look at this and it's really weird, okay. They're all spaced out weird, and I just don't like it. Okay, it's very difficult to understand, to read, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna make a chart as well so you can kind of see how it looks. Double click on it. Okay, gap width of 0, and you see those values at the bottom. They're just really weird to look at. They're not round, they're hard to understand. And so that's why the number of classes, it doesn't need to be perfect. 7 is ideal, but if the data has much better interpretability with just 6 classes or with 8 classes, go with a different number of classes. So it's easier to interpret it when you're dealing with nice round numbers. So for instance, things that are easily recognizable, easily added and subtracted, we're going to do 0.75. Okay. And when you do 0.75, you'll see 0 to 0.75, 0.75 to 1.5. And so these are much cleaner than what it was before. Okay. And so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Move this out of the way. Okay. And I'm also going to do let's see. So I want to access the pivot table again, or sorry, the pivot table. If you don't see your pivot table, go up here to pivot table analyze, click on the pivot table, then click pivot table analyze. And if you click this field list, it'll toggle whether or not it can see it. So pivot table, and then we are going to put a second one of count exercise hours. And you notice it puts a second column in there, or a second set of data. And then we're going to do show values as % of grand total. And this is once again why you've got to now make a histogram with just this information right here, Control C. So we're going to do insert. And then we're going to gap width of 0. Okay. Now let's come over here to the sum of ideal time to exercise. Once again, you've got to right click, show values as, or summarize values by count. Okay. And after you summarize values by count, let's go ahead. You see, you're on the pivot table. You click right there, or you click X on the other one. But we're going to go ahead and put another count column. So count. And show values as % of grand total. And this one's a little bit different because there's a lot more values. We're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste this, Control C. Okay. So we're going to use the 2 to the k is greater than n rule. So k is the number of classes, n is the number of observations, which is still 99. The class width or interval. So let's 2 to the k, that's still the same number of observations. So because it's still the same number of observations, k is still going to be 7. So you're right here, 128, 2 raised to the 7th is 128, which is the first one that's over 99. And so the class width or interval is going to be the max minus the min. So the max is 25. Let's do 25. The min is 3. Okay. And then the range is, let's see here. The range is going to be 25 minus 3 equals 25 minus 3. And so we've got a range of 22. And so then we've got the interval equals 22 divided by 7, which gives us 3.14. once again, if you come over here and you right click and you do group 3 to 25 by 3.14, you get this. Looks really weird. So your options are you can group them by 3, or you can group them by 3.25, or you can group them by 3.5. I'm going to group them by 3.5 for various reasons. Mainly has to do with what we're going to be doing on the next page. So I'm going to group by 3.5. Okay. So now we've got all this information right here. It's all grouped by 3.5. You've got the relative frequency, the actual frequency, and then you've got the classes. And I'm going to copy and paste this, Control C, Control V, and I am going to insert okay. And once again, gap width 0. Okay. Now you should be able to read each of these, looking at how many observations are in each class. I'm sure you guys would agree that this is much cleaner than that other option. And then if you were to look at relative frequency and make one just for relative frequency, a histogram for relative frequency, it would look identical to this. The only thing that would be different is right here, you wouldn't have the 0 to 40, you would have 0 to whatever percent, the largest one. So it'd still probably be around 40%. But yeah, so that's how you do this first page, 1-2-2A. And I'm going to do another video that goes over 1-2-2B in just a second. So